and welcome to the last first look seminar of 2023, right, Gino? This is the last one of the year.
It's also the first one of the meet. So,
First one
right,
of the meet.
it's the first
Yeah.
one, first look seminar.
First look seminar. Right.
So
that rolls right off the tongue.
I know.
So
That's great.
we are going to look at the pick six for tomorrow, which would be Saturday the 30th. And I'm getting a call from Aaron Greiter right now. So, Gino, I'm going to answer this real quick and put on mute. You talk about the start of the pick six.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at races 4 through 9 in the pick six sequence for Saturday. Keep in mind, as we are recording this on Friday evening, there has not been any rain yet. A lot of rain has been forecast for Saturday, so we're going to keep monitoring that. But as of right now, fingers crossed, we haven't had any of the wet weather quite yet. And Chappie, with the return of Santa Anita, means the return of those pick'em contests, totally free to enter every Saturday, every Sunday, $500 to the winner. So every Saturday, there's a $500 winner. Every Sunday, there's a $500 winner. There's also a cumulative prize for whoever has the most selections all the way through April the 7th. And you're going to have to be on your game if you want to beat ZZ, right? Because I think ZZ's won that thing a few times. So
back to back. I texted her this morning. She said, I got to do all the work again. She puts hours of work in. I said, you're going for the three-peat here.
Yeah. So anyone else out there, if you want to beat her, you better step your game up. I always put out videos every Friday night and then Saturday night just to show what the contest looks like for each of those days. I'll always throw out like 1 or 2 races or games that I'm getting involved in. And it's a fun time right now because a lot of football. You know, Saturday football games in the NFL now for the next few weeks, bowl games still happening. Basketball is going to get in the mix too. So lots of sports crossover along with the racing for each card, whatever cards. And you guys do a really good job of picking the challenging races or some type of head-to-head matchups. It's a lot of fun and it's free, Chappie. That's the best way to build a bankroll when you don't have to spend any money to enter.
That's right. Not a dime. And you just asked ZZ. She's had a heck of a time winning a lot of money. And let's try to win some money for Saturday, Gina. We're going to look at the pick six. You know, it's funny, since we went to the traditional dollar pick six, the been overwhelmingly positive towards everybody. We've yet to have a carryover. So we're waiting for that big carryover and see all that money coming into the pool. And I think it's a pretty challenging card tomorrow. Like I think you touched on. I love when you have to do something live. I literally had to answer the phone there for a second, but looks like the rain might taper off. So I think we should be on the turf, and so we are going to handicap this all for the turf. This starts in race 4, which is a mile, $20,000 claimers on the dirt. What were you looking at here at race 4, Gino?
So October the 21st, Zimba Warrior, the number 5, beat the 1, 2, and 3 from this race. They were all in a very similar type race, and Zimba Warrior got the better of them. You can also add in Direct Line now to the field here. So these smaller races a lot of times are just a little bit more difficult as far as horses having their normal running styles, right? Because sometimes they'll have to adapt a little bit because of the smaller fields here. But looking at the way this thing shapes up, I do think there are like enough versions of this race where a couple of the horses, like the 1, 3, and 4, could all be jockeying for some early positioning. And I think that would set up again for Zimba Warrior, who beat a group just like this and then stepped up and faced protected groups, was in like allowance races in back-to-back spots. One of those was on the grass. And then last time out, actually ran really well in a 25 starter against a horse that went gate to wire. So that race was against the race shape for a horse like Zimba Warrior. So I think the 5 will get a really nice trip in here. I just kind of process of elimination in this race, Chappie. It was hard for me, even with the way the race shapes up, to get to Direct Line with the horse just kind of dropping with the layoffs. Like that was a little bit concerning for me. He does have a big shot to be the one right on the front end and maybe loose on the lead. I think Good Juju will push him enough. So I'm going to go 1 and 5, I think, on a lot of my tickets. I looked at the Sencento race, and Sencento was right there in the mix when he had the inside draw on October 21st. And then he got shuffled and stuck behind horses a little bit. And him and Good Juju were kind of right there for some of the minors. And then he faded a bit late. I'm gonna use the 5 on top and probably the 1. I'm gonna try to build around those two, which I think could actually offer you value in this short field because they may be not the horses that are like your first and second choices here.
Right. And like you said, it's weird how sometimes a field like this, it's difficult to figure the pace out a little bit. It's a small field, compact. They all have a shot. You could make a case for any horse in this race. And even with, you were some of the knocks on Direct Line, just go to the trainer right now. Pete Earton once again is on fire and won a couple races again today. So throw him out at your own peril, just because we all know how when these jockeys, or excuse me, these trainers get on a roll, it continues. And to me, this was just an absolute puzzle of a race to start it off. So if I could buy the first leg, Gino, in the pick six, if the bankroll would allow for that, that's what I would do here to start us off.
Yeah.
So let's go to race 2, which is another tough race here, because you got 2-year-old fillies going a mile on the turf. You're looking at a lot of horses who haven't done something before. This is another thing where you're watching replays, you're watching workouts, but you also have to look ahead to think what horses might be bred to do, which I know you look into those stats much. I'm more visual and you're more of breeding and potential, things like that. So we kind of come at it from different angles, which I think works well together. So what were your thoughts here? Small field, only a field of 7, but once again, pretty tough.
One of the better TV shows of the last decade. I'm not sure if you were a fan of, but I'm sure many that are watching this were. Ted Lasso tells you that one thing you have to do, Chappie, is you got to be a goldfish. You got to have that 10-second memory, especially in sports. That was one of his lines early on.
I've never seen Ted Lasso.
Oh,
never.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I've heard it enough that I will watch Ted Lasso. I'm a big fan of Jason Sudeikis. So, that's on my list.
A goldfish, and I'm talking about the number 4 in here. So this is a filly who debuted on October the 29th. And actually, she was in the very same race with Lamborghini, who's inside of her. She actually outfinished Lamborghini in that race. Be a Goldfish had a fine start. They lined up 6 horses across the track. And she was in between horses, and she kind of got just shuffled back. She had to take back. And instead of just backing up, in which a lot of horses do, especially in their debut, she angled to the outside, and she came around again. And she actually passed some horses late, and she picked up some pieces, and she really tried. She showed me a little something that day. Again, she outfinished Lamborghini. Following that, we haven't seen Be a Goldfish, but Lamborghini stepped up, tried the grass, and finished second. Be a Goldfish's dam did not race, but she does have a winning turf sibling. And in this race, there's not very much proven speed. The one is scratched also. Senora Vittoria is out. The only 2 horses that we've seen that have raced that have been forwardly placed are Lamborghini and Be a Goldfish. So in this situation, if Be a Goldfish just has a good beginning again, won't be in a situation where they're going to be lining up 6 across the track. This horse just puts himself in the race, could really be live in here. Kimura comes off of another really nice meet up at Woodbine, comes down here like a really solid rider. And this is a horse who went 6.5 last time out. So a little bit of foundation there. Just check some boxes. I think a race that's better than looks. This horse has some speed in a race that doesn't have much of it. Bred to be fine on the grass. There aren't really any monsters in here. So I kind of want the horses that I think are going to be more forwardly placed. So I thought Be a Goldfish was one that was worth mentioning. That might not be another, obvious horse that everyone's using.
Yeah, like you said, the other 3 are all come out of the same race, basically. Excuse me, 2 of them, Lamborghini, Be a Goldfish.
Rose. Which of those 2 do you prefer? Did you like, or either of the other more?
I think OK Rose, believe it or not, had trouble 2 back last time out. Ran okay. I like the move to Pratt here,
and I think she can sit closer than she did, especially in this small field. I think so too. Like, of those 2, I would prefer OK Rose. I stacked them 4-6. I didn't know what to do with Quick Kate quite as much. The figure didn't come back great. The race was pretty impressive after a slow start.
Yeah.
So and again, this isn't a monster group, so this horse wouldn't really have to improve very much stretching out. So I don't really have knocks on that one too. So Be
I think
Yeah.
one thing, and we're projecting again. Thus far, I would think the turf course has favored speed a little bit so far. I mean, it's played fair enough, but I mean, today was a little different. The rails were at 30 feet, but I think we've seen in a very small sample with 2 race days in, some horses go wire to wire. So I think you got to be more forwardly placed at this point. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if there's right now, it's moisture probably going to be too. Like, I just don't think you're going to want to be coming from like way out of it, especially if there is some weather tomorrow too.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to race 3, or excuse me, the third leg, which would be race 6. We're starter optional claimer here, going a mile on the main track. And I think the 3 Hondo Crouch is going to take some betting here, adding the blinkers for Mark Glatt, who was only 3 for 3 starting the meet.
Yeah.
And I believe he won. That's a little off today. He had few starters, but he did win another race today. So he had a couple first-time starters, but he did win. He beat a like a 3 to 5 today. So he's got 4 wins in 2 days. Is that the horse to beat here?
Yes. You just have to feel like in this field, he has to be forwardly placed, right? The intent is there with the blinkers on. He's probably naturally one of the quicker horses in this race. He was right next to Bennett and Joe. They last raced together on November the 10th at Del Mar. They were numbers 8 and 9 in a race, and they were next to each other. Actually, it was a pretty good move by Fresu, who he was able to get inside from being on the outside of Bennett and Joe. And he got to the inside and then tucked in, and they were right next to each other. Hondo Crouch ran a lot better that day to finish third. I think he is the horse to beat. I wasn't really that high on Bennett and Joe. The horse who I think's sort of a wild card to me that I'm going to use along with Hondo Crouch is Dual Threat. Now, Dual Threat just might not get the trip, right? Dual Threat might be a little farther back in this race, and if we're looking at it and maybe it's a small field, there's not a whole lot of speed. But from a class standpoint, and does he figure if you toss the turf and you toss the synthetic races? His last 4 races on dirt are all in the money finishes, and they're all at levels that would be pretty comparable to this. You have the Tory aboard, who does a really good job of getting horses to show a little more speed than they normally do. That was one thing that I was really impressed with watching him more on a race-to-race basis last year when he came to the United States, more than just watching him in some of the big races internationally. When I saw him riding all these levels at Santa Anita, I was really impressed with how good of a speed rider he is, and how a lot of times he would get these horses that weren't really in great form to show speed and kind of wake up. So if he could just get this horse to sit a little bit closer, people will overlook and dismiss him because his last 2 races just are not good at all. One of them, he was eased, but they were on completely different surfaces that are irrelevant to his pretty good success on the dirt. So for me, he's a wild card in here to use along with the 3. And then maybe I look at this race and say, does the 2 get aggressive also? There might be versions of this race where they try to get really aggressive with the 1. Del Mar Jerry, earlier in his career, his only win came sprinting on the lead. What happened, though, since his last few races, he's just had so much trouble. He seems like
I
can't expect the speed there, but if this race is run 100 times, I try to do that in my head. How many versions of this race would it be, right? Is there a way where there's the 1, 2, and 3 all pushing each other a little bit, and then maybe the 4 gets the trip?
You're right about Del Mar Jerry. It's very sneaky. It looks like if you just stare down at the PPs, oh, wow, this horse is just a deep closer. That's not actually the truth. Like you said, there's been a lot of trouble in those last 3 races. The horse has shown speed in the past. This is a race void of speed.
And blinkers one thing to point to, not to interrupt, but when they're on different surfaces, that's also something to notice, because he's been a lot farther behind on the turf. And sometimes there's just a thing to that sometimes, to where you see horses not necessarily as fast on a different surface. Sometimes they like it more, or they don't, or maybe they just don't get a hold of it quite as well early. But in his dirt races, he was much more forwardly placed. much closer in all of them. So maybe getting back to the dirt wakes him back up a little bit. He shows a little more. I'd probably want a little higher of a price on him than 5-2, but I mean, it's a small field. You know, you can't really get too big of a price in here.
Not being race specific, and we'll move on. But the one thing you mentioned earlier that I took away immediately from when I saw Frankie Dettori come here was I was amazed, just like you said, how aggressive he could be, especially when he looked at a race that might be devoid of speed. And he many times down the hill, very often, he takes it to them on a horse that on paper shows no speed whatsoever, much more aggressive than I expected from him. And it took a lot of people by surprise, and you can tell why he's world class.
Yeah, absolutely. And we beat you in all different ways, right?
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's move on to race 7. We're going completely different scenario here. We're going 5.5 furlongs, maiden 32. What are you looking at here?
Oh man, this was a challenging race. I really think you could make a case for just my first look over this race. I had a little bit of an asterisk or a note with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and 11 all as horses that could be on my radar. But as I took my second looks and got into more, one horse that was interesting to me is Sharp Lorenzo. Both of his races are very similar. He has a slow first step out of the gate, but then he is fast. He's very fast. Right afterwards, he gets right back into it and he pushes right into the race. But both times he ran into horses that were just a little faster than him and he got stopped. And he just couldn't come on again because he had already had a slow start and then rushed, got stopped, backed up, and that was it for him. He's dropping down from open maiden special weights to maiden 32s here. If he can just have a better first step and then go, I think he's going to be right in the race and run a really big one in here. So he's in the mix for me. I sort of whittled down to building a lot around 7, 8, and 9, I think, as horses I like. I was pretty impressed with the Midnight Loves race at Los Al last time out. And now when you look at his body of work, Chappie, you've got 4 races. 3 of them are pretty good. One of them is not. And that race was going 6.5, and it was off like a 5-month layoff for this horse. So you could probably just eliminate that race right away. And now you're looking at 3 nice races, a couple of seconds in the third. And now this horse is going to go third start off the form cycle. I think he has every opportunity to be right there. The 9 makes sense, just dropping in class, cutting back, second out improvement should be very logical for Mullins. This horse was in a really good spot, and then he just sort of faded early in the stretch. He kind of went to the inside, and now you figure if he just runs the same sort of race against a lower level, he's probably right in the race and has a little more stick. I'll be using a lot of 8, 7, 9 in this race.
Yeah, I was actually 6 deep in here. You know, I kind of what you said. It was a tough. The 3 you mentioned. I think the rail horse just on the drop and is 2 of 3. You know, I think Smiling Jojo just with the speed. Although this horse will probably get overbet, and then the other horse would be the 11 on the outside, who was favorite morning line favorite in the debut. Claimed by Val Brinkerhoff, who's one of those we always talk about, one of the sneaky trainers who does a good job, who rarely gets bet. Outside draw, has speed, can be dangerous. And the one you mentioned, that Sharp Lorenzo, is a very sneaky one because the drops mean so much. And if this horse could break and not stumble, this horse could be long gone and might not get bet.
I know. He was really sneaky in here. And you pointed out the other horses too, like the 1, Mr. Chivas. All you have to do is a little bit of forgiveness with some of his races. And I think you very easily could. You can forgive the turf race. And then the race in September, he was off the bench for a little bit, came back last time, put himself in the race, tired after. Now he's dropping. That 3-race stretch from May, June, July, those are good. 3 race, and it's not just 1 race, it's 3 in a row. So, you know, there's a little foundation. This horse has a nice body of work and a nice sample size. It is the type of race where there's no monsters. I mean, a horse like the 2 or the 3, right? These first-time starters, they wouldn't have to be very much to beat this type of a group. It was a really challenging race to handicap. It was a fun one. I think at 6 or over, I'm going to put a little win money on Sharp Lorenzo, but I'll spread out, use the 3 I mentioned, play probably another, in the pick 4 or pick 5, where I'm spreading just like you are, because it's a fun, challenging race to handicap.
No doubt. And as much as we talk about, we love the maiden races. For us, the maiden special weights, because we do so much work on XBTV and watching workouts, they're a little bit easier. These lower level maiden claimers, especially with some first time starters sprinkled in, they can be very difficult races to handicap. But look, it makes the sequence that much better. And we're talking about carryovers. This is a type of race where you could get a big price in here. All right, let's move on to race number 8. Now we're back to the maiden special weights. We are going, and you know what? As I'm thinking about this as we're going along, there is no easy single in any of them.
Even though the fields aren't massive, they're very challenging. They're not obvious standout horses in any of these. I mean, this is one of those races where you have 5 horses exit a common race.
Correct.
5 come out of the November 19th race. And it's always difficult when you have those. You don't know. You watch it and you try to see what you can find. I don't know if it was on purpose or sort of by coincidence that the 2 horses that I actually like the most in here are not even in those common races. I'm going to lean on Bert's Prospect as a horse I'm having to use in exotics here. With the blinkers coming off, this is a horse who debuted against Open Maiden Special Weight Company. We were just talking about Dettori and his ability to get horses up on the front end, and Dettori is going to jump aboard this horse for Sean McCarthy. The Dam was a 4-time winner on the turf, including a Calbred Stakes winner going a mile on the turf. This is what Mama did exactly, right up her alley. And this horse got a race under his belt already going long against Tougher, showed some natural speed, now takes the blinkers off. I think he's very live in here in a race where who is the proven speed? Ghostly Act by default is probably going to be close in here. Be Punctual, fresh, blinkers on with the wide draw. That's the other horse who I like because I think they have to go. And if you look at Be Punctual, he comes out of races that I think are a little bit stronger than that race that everyone else comes out of, the old pal races, right? Those to me just feel way, way stronger. So I like that he's not in that same grouping. I'm using 6 and 8 as my top 2. Probably end up using 1 or 2 others in here. The 3's on my radar also. I thought he ran really well in that race. And again, that's the 3 horses that aren't in the 5 common race that they all exit on November the 19th.
And the 3, I agree with you there. Showed a nice turn of foot late and ran on well, and I think this horse will run well. The horse out of that common race that I thought was interesting was actually the 2. The 2 had a very uncomfortable trip early, was ranked kind of in between, taken back several times, just never looked comfortable, and still ran on for 3rd. Now JJ jumps aboard. I think this horse could have some more speed. And, if this horse relaxed a little bit, because if you see that Lack Room first time out, then was Green second time out, then was Rank 3rd time out. So I think this is probably one of those horses that once the horse figures it all out, This horse has got some talent.
Ability, runs in spots, just has to put it all together. And if the price is right, no knocks on this one. Of those, I prefer the 2, like you said. Ghostly Act. It's funny because if you look at him initially, you'll look and say, he's a horse that has 5 seconds in a 3rd. I don't like playing horses like that. But then when you take another look, he's never been under 3-1 in any race. To me, that's a little different than horses that are always favored and beaten, because he's not supposed to be winning a lot of these races, and he's sort of outrunning his odds quite often. So I don't have as bad of a knock on him. I actually think he's pretty honest and he fits well for the way this race could shape up. He's kind of versatile too. But the 6 was the horse who I'm hoping can get loose out front and, mention the 8. Those races to me with Old Pal feel like a lot better than this
Old
one.
Pal was we were always a big Old Pal fans. And
Yeah.
one last thing about Gosliak, like you said, we're usually 0 for 10 maiden. Let's move on. But hasn't been bet, has ran second 5 of the 10 times, and last time was 4 clear of the 2 who ran third. So they were well ahead of the rest of the field with the winner.
Keep in mind, what was weighing him down last time was that I needed him badly in exotics, and he looked like he was about to blow right on by, and then did not. So that was something that he may not have to deal with tomorrow.
That's for you, right? But then also we say, man, maybe the horse does have a little hang in it. That's a tough one. When
that's a lot of weight that he may be lacking tomorrow with my piano off his back. So
exactly, that's true. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the 9th and final. Gino, we're going 6 furlongs, 12.5 non-winners of 3 lifetime. It doesn't get any easier here. I'll be very interested to get your perspective in this race.
I really like a horse in here, though. The number 2, Elevado. I feel like this is a perfect spot, level, distance, all coming together. Elevado beat 16 non-winners of 2 on September the 3rd at Del Mar, going 6 furlongs, sitting the exact type of trip I hope he sits today. 2 or 3 lengths off. He was 5th in that race in a field of 12. He made a nice little move to the lead, and he just held on, workmanlike. Following that, he steps up and goes longer 3 races in a row. So all 3 races, he was facing tougher and going a little bit longer. In the November 26th race, watching it, it's like when you watch something and then you get the advanced stats and you see the stats and then you watch it yourself. And what I was thinking was exactly what happened in the race. This horse was sitting nicely, 4th, got pushed back, was about 4 lengths off, moves up to 2nd, early stretch, dead aim. Looks like this horse is going to go right by 6.5, just a little bit too far. And now this cutback, drop in class, that same exact trip puts this horse in, I think, a winning spot. So for me, Elevado fits very, very well in here. A couple others just worth mentioning. Ferociously on the drop. This horse does not want to pass horses. I think they just want to get aggressive on the drop and just let's go as fast as we can. Big Splash is a little interesting to me too, because I mentioned the Los Al races a lot as a good tightener. This horse had not raced since June 24th, but went over to Los Al and used one of those 1,000-yard quarter horse, like thoroughbred race combos as a little prep to get ready for this. He actually can pass horses and the speed maybe sharpened up a little bit. I'm going to use him in some pick 4s and pick 5s and late exotics here, but I really do like the 2 Elevado in this spot. I think he's going to run well.
The only ones I would add on that you haven't mentioned a little bit would be the outside 3 horses. We won't go in order of preference, but just in order of number. 10th Street Dawn, it won a couple in a row and then came off the bench last time, broke slowly from the rail and ran on well. Vladimir Serin is always tough, second off the bench. That horse, once again, like we mentioned horse earlier, the problem with that horse is the horse breaks slowly more often than not. So if the horse can get away in good order, this horse has a big shot. And then
the 11, my concern, I think he fits at the level, and it wouldn't be a shock to see him run well. It would just be the wide trip going 6. It seems like that may even be like just beyond his scope, but could he get the trip if there's not a whole lot of other speed pressing it? Absolutely good enough to win this race. Could see him 2nd or 3rd or underneath.
Yeah, because he's one of those sneaky 0 for 12 maidens because they thought enough. They kept running in maiden special weight company, and the horse kept hitting the board. Finally, last time off the layoff, let's go down to the maiden 20 level, break our maiden here. Has some tactical speed drawn outside. Like you said, it's all about the trip. But I think this horse has, and Frisu is a guy that you still is, especially with the jockey colony now, is very under the radar out here.
Absolutely.
And
he's this will come off not how I'm trying to, but I'm saying this as a positive. He's a trier.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want in some of these lower level races. The guy doesn't stop. Like,
yep.
I think he's I always feel like I got a good, I don't feel cheated on a ride, right? I feel like he gave it everything he has. Is he going to get in trouble? Is he not always going to make the right decision? Sure. And every rider is going to encounter that sometimes, but he's giving me a great effort all the time at these lower levels, especially with horses who you need to do that with. Right. It's easy on the nice horses to just point him in the right direction. When you got to really ride him, I think he does a good job of doing that.
Yeah, no doubt. And then to the outside, the last one I'll mention is just, this horse with some tactical speed, and also, 3 times in a row ran against open company, then was protected last time. Now you're going into that non-winners of 3L. I think this is just a spot that the 12 fits very well in here. So I would be using the ones you mentioned, including the outside 3 to finish it off.
Between the 7th and the 9th, just those 2 races, how challenging they are. Even with some of the other small fields, any sort of late exotics are really difficult because those 2 races are 2 of the 3 closing races. And as far as looking at like the weather tomorrow, those 2 races wouldn't even be on the turf anyways if we were to get some rain and they were to be taken off. So those races may not even have a whole lot of chaos or changes if we were to remove from the grass. So this could be still a very challenging late set of races tomorrow.
No doubt. Just remind everybody, so the every day this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday racing as well. First post noon, all 3 days. Monday, of course, dollar beers and sodas, $2 hot dogs. We'll be ringing in the new year. We'll have the Rose Bowl on. Should be a great weekend of racing. And you can also catch Gino and I tomorrow morning on the Morning Line Sports Show at am830.net or the Angels app or TML AM830 on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.
Our friends at Gulfstream too. They got a good card tomorrow. They have 5 stakes races on the card, so we'll be back and forth talking about them on the radio show. And don't forget about those pick'em contests. Free to enter. Kick back and play the races and watch all the great sports going on this weekend.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Have a great new year, and we will see you soon. Gino, thank you very much, buddy. I'll talk to you in the morning.
Talk soon, everyone. Good luck.
Have a good night.